They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her. Ah!
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line. Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go! Here I am.
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can't hide.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hello everyone and welcome to Hawley the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for our podcast on this lovely Thursday morning as we're here to chat about our favourite subject, Sunderland FC, the best football team in the land. And today we're going to do something a little bit different that we haven't already done before. It's 2 up, 2 down. Don't know if you're familiar with this, but we do it on the website after every game, where we get a little panel of Rotor reporters together to give 2 positives, 2 negatives from that day's game. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the season so far. 2 positives and 2, I'm not going to call them negatives, I'm going to call them areas of improvement. Because if I asked you for 2 negatives after the start Sunderland have had, you would probably be like, what the hell are you on about, Gav? We've had the best start ever. We don't want to give negatives. So these are maybe areas of concern, maybe areas you maybe want to see a little bit of improvement, that sort of thing. Anyways, the 2 men I've got with me today to go over all of this. First up, we've got Jonny Hawley with us, who's been on more podcasts than I have even in the last fortnight or so. Hello, mate.
All right, mate. I was starting to forget the sound of your voice, actually, so it's nice to have you back.
I know, I've been so busy, man, just life in it. Life and work and, yeah, just being busy. But I'm back now anyways. I'm back I think I am anyways, barring any major disasters like, the pandemic or something and the internet going down. I don't know. I'm here for the foreseeable. Also with us, a very special guest, somebody who, if you've been listening to podcasts on Rotor Report for years and years and years and years, you'll know exactly who he is. It's Connor Bromley. Hello, mate.
Hello, how are we doing? It's good to be back, kind of back. Obviously, it's a different podcast now, so I feel like that history is now just dead.
That's it. Well, you were on a reaction pod after what game was it you were on after with us?
It was one of the
was it pre-season
seasons? Yeah.
Yeah, me, you, Jonny, and your brother Niall. Yeah, that was it. You were on that one, so you'll be on every so often, mate, won't you? You've got your own thing going on at the minute over on YouTube, haven't you? You're becoming one of them YouTubers, one of them irritating twats who's never off my YouTube feed.
just love talking about Sunderland, and since I'm not on here every day like I used to be, I've got to make my own platform to talk rubbish about Sunderland.
So where can people find you? They just search your name?
Literally just my name, yeah. And also, I don't know, sometimes people retweet them. I whack them on my Twitter if people follow us. But yeah, basically, if you type in Sunderland, there's a good chance that my face will probably pop up somewhere.
There we go. There we go. There's always plenty of room for decent YouTube content, I think, especially when it comes to Sunderland. Not a better time to get into it, as they're with the club doing very well in the Premier League. Anyways, let's move on to what we're talking about today. So, as I said at the top, 2 up, 2 down. We're going to pick out some things that we're really happy with, and we're going to pick out some things that we maybe think we'd like to see a little bit of improvement, or something that we're a little bit concerned could become a problem. Does probably seem a bit moot to be talking about negatives. These aren't negatives. I did see I put posts out on Facebook, on X, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, Got loads of replies from people. So if you did reply, thank you very much. It's good. We're going to try and do that a little bit more with some of these pods where we throw a topic out there. Want to get you guys involved in what we're talking about and stuff. So if anybody wants to contribute, those posts are on all of our platforms. Well, like I said, we're gonna have a look so far at the season, and it's been brilliant, Jonny, hasn't it? I mean, we've done a lot of podcasts already this season. Obviously, we do this every single day, and for Connor and me, we used to do this in League One when we were absolutely rotten. So to be able to sit here and talk about a Premier League Sunderland team, it almost feels silly to me that I'm sitting here now and I'm like, I put myself through doing that. Nobody forced us to do podcasts during the worst period in the club's history. So now I'm sat here and I'm just like delirious. I'm completely baffled by how amazing everything is. And I guess for you as as part of the team, you get to do this as much as I do. It's fun, innit? We don't, like, I can imagine if we were still languishing in the lower leagues or something, it would be difficult to get ourselves up for doing a podcast every single day, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Like, I'm still enough of a Sunderland obsessive that I think I still would do it. But you're right. We wouldn't be, starting every podcast with it's class to be back and I cannot wait to talk about Sunderland again and everything's brilliant. Like, it's, it is very much a luxury that we've got at the minute that we're talking about Sunderland every day in, one of the best short-term periods in the club's history. Everything from the playoffs till now has just been, it's been like a dream, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously that, that could sound a little bit small time to certain fans of certain clubs. I suppose we haven't really achieved anything yet apart from promotion, but yeah, it's just everything about the club, about the mood in the supporters, the relationships that we all feel with the players on the pitch. It's all just class. So I'm loving talking about it, and long may the good times continue.
We get that feedback from the listeners too. People are loving it. Like, and again, just as much as we would be sitting here going, bloody hell, we've got to talk about Sunderland again after this, that, and the other. The people listening are loving it because, like, they're just like us. They can't get enough of what's going on. And like I said, Connor, for me and you, when we used to do this back in the day, I mean, it was pretty hectic. Like, we used to rock up at that studio at Sunderland Uni every Sunday to record with whoever we had on with us that week. But, we were talking about Sunderland struggling, and obviously we did all those podcasts with the owners. We had loads of mad guests coming in. It was a crazy time, but it wasn't necessarily like fun in the sense of what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, now we're just, you feel like a proud dad watching Sunderland now, don't you? You can kind of sit back and go, I was there through the tough times with you, son, but you're back. You're on top of the world. You got yourself a good job. You've got yourself a nice lass and a house and a car. Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I mean, we used to call them therapy sessions as well. We used to come in from a 1-1 draw with Burton Albion or something. Like, all right, we're gonna have to talk this through like a therapy thing. And I think at the time, the people that listened, the poor beggars that used to listen to her, were probably, it was their way of at least feeling like they weren't alone. But now, I mean, I just drink in all the content. I watch and listen. I like listening to neutral people talk about Sunderland. It's so good when you're like, I don't know, I watch like there's a guy who does one on YouTube where they talk about the newly promoted teams, and I love watching that because every week it's like, Sunderland's looking the best out of the newly promoted teams. Sunderland's doing really strong out of the newly promoted teams. I'm like, yeah, we are. Like, everyone at the start of the season, they said like the rest is football. They put like 2 minutes on Sunderland and they just were like, yeah, Sunderland will go down. I was like, all right, cool. That was it. All of them were like, yeah, Monday Night Football. I think Carragher just for no reason has us going down, doesn't explain why. And then it feels like we're proving people wrong a little bit. So yeah, gone are the days of celebrating games against the absolute tripe in League One and coming against them horrendous low blocks who are wasting time all game, like Joey Barton cheering down the touchline and all them horrific things. It just feels like it actually feels like a different football club now. It's like mental where we are right now compared to where we were just literally 3 years ago.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, well, yeah, a different football club. And it's that adjustment, Jonny, isn't it, that people are still struggling with to a degree. Because I've been talking to people today. We've had like a bit of a company day at work today, so been a lot of socialising at work, and I've been talking to different people about not even Sunderland fans, other fans of other clubs and stuff, like Everton fans and Leeds fans and the odd mag as well. And it's also it's almost interesting to me that everybody's got an opinion on us now, and they're all pretty positive. Like even my mates who are mags are kind of talking about us, and they're going, "It's pissing us off how well you've started. Like I wish it was shit." Like, you know what I mean? Like, and there's that thing within us as Sunderland fans where you can't help it, but you're still sitting there going, "Oh, you know," like you see that stat about Villa and they've not scored, and you just gone, "Well, they're playing Sunderland next." You know, you can't help but be like that, can you? It's like, you know, but like everything's pointing to like what Connor said. Everything's pointing to it being like a new football club. It's not the same Sunderland, and yeah, we're gonna have the odd day where we slip up, but it does genuinely feel like a different club to the one I was brought up watching. It's got all them core values, all those things that I love about Sunderland are still there, and if anything, they're more present. You know, they've done a great job of accentuating those things to us, I think, over the last year or two, to really like play on what we are culturally and what we represent and all those things. But still, there's just these like nagging doubts, and I'm really trying my best not to let that take over. Like I'm looking at Villa at the weekend and I'm going, actually, bollocks. Like I'll fancy us against them. I think we can beat them. Yeah, they're on a shit run. Come and play us.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that stat about Villa, because literally today in the office I was talking to the one other Sunderland fan at work, and we were having this exact conversation about, oh yeah, you know, big game on Sunday, and the first thing I turned to him and said was, you know, oh, bloody hell, you know, they've not scored this season. Dr. Sunderland will come and, you know, sort you out. Whereas my conversations with everybody else, any other fan from any other fan base, mirrors exactly what you were talking about. They've all got an opinion on us, and 99% of them are positive. And I just thought it's funny that the only Sunderland fan I speak to regularly in Leeds at work, we're the only two who are like, aye, but it is still Sunderland though. Like, they still carry those scars. But you're right, it's been a funny sort of few months because everything's happened so quickly since promotion. And yes, obviously, you know, we have had a few months to digest everything now, but, you know, you go straight from the playoff final to the window happens, and then Gazolfi comes in, and then Xhaka signs, and then this, and then that, and then the games start, and there's always something else to think about. You don't actually take any time to just take a step back and reflect on the fact that, as you have both said as well, we really do feel like a different football club now. And as you say, Gav, obviously all the core values and all that sort of thing's still there, but everything on the footballing side is so unrecognisable from where it's been for the vast majority of everybody listening's Sunderland supporting lives. You know, unless you're 5 years old and you're listening to us and everything's been sort of, you know, near enough hunky-dory, everyone does need to just have that mentality shift and actually be able to kind of reset and think, yeah, you know, actually, maybe Sunderland are that team who score late goals and fight till the end and get the results when the pressure's on, because we're all so used to that not being the case that I think, yeah, you know, everything since May onwards has been so radically different and been so quick and at you before you can think that, you know, we still all carry that baggage from the League One years and even some of the Championship years. I mean, the 23-24 season was pretty bleak as well. But yeah, like you say, the fans of other clubs who look at us from a much more neutral point of view, unless they mags, but everybody else, they don't have all that. So they just look at it and go, yeah, actually, Sunderland are pretty good. They've spent a load of money. They're getting some results. And, you know, it'll be interesting when that tide, if it does start to turn in the fan base, when you see that attitude shift and what that means for us as a fan base, because we've never really had anything like this to sort of coalesce around and build an identity around footballing wise. It's always been about, you know, community club or, you know, the rich history of the area and the passion of the support, but we've never had something as concrete as this to build on. And it's again, just it's such exciting times for the club. I can't wait to see more of it. You know, I can't wait to see how we develop from here on out.
And as you said before, Connor, where you said, you know, it's like we're almost a new club. And then you think about the things that these pundits say about Sunderland, or these, you know, the likes of Jamie Carragher and whoever else, who really that they haven't paid attention to Sunderland until now for 8 years. So to them, it's like learning who we are all over again, but they'll still be carrying that sort of what Sunderland used to be. idea in their minds, I would have thought. And week by week, we're changing people's opinions because the big thing was obviously the transfer window and everybody looking at the bit, for neutrals that can look at the business. They turn on Sky Sports News and say, Sunderland have spent 180 million or whatever. Then they begin to form opinion from that point. They'll be like, they're serious about staying up. And then the results come with it. And then it's like, and then you start to form a narrative. And a lot of them will be forming narratives without even really watching us. But that's going to be quite interesting to watch how that develops too, isn't it? At the start of the season, at least, where like the coverage of the football club from people outside of Sunderland is almost coming from a completely fresh base. It's like this new team, this new club, this fresh feeling face of the club. It's in their face all of a sudden, and they're like, and we're learning about Sunderland again from scratch ultimately.
Yeah, I think there's two ways of looking at this. I think you've got that aspect that you just talked about there, the fact that the club feels fresh and new. We've not been in the Premier League for a period of time, which means that there was a lot of negativity around Sunderland when they were in the Premier League last of being the survival experts and all that sort of stuff. And we were seen as a bit of a joke, I feel like, in the end of that Premier League era. And then now we've come up and we get all that positivity with the stadium's full every game, the atmosphere, everyone's talking about the limbs when we score goals. Seen a lot of people talking about the fact it's nuts at the stadium alike, and like you haven't seen limbs like it in the Premier League. Comes probably from the back end of the season as well with that Coventry game. Then I also think heading into the season, there was a lot of lazy narratives around not just Sunderland, but the newly promoted teams. You see a lot of the 6 teams that have come up in the last 2 years have all come straight back down, which means the gulf between the Premier League and the Championship is far too much for anyone to ever break. And I've said this a few times, but it's context. The context of those 6 teams is so different to the context of us. You can go through them individually. Ipswich bought Championship players. Burnley, when they came up under company, spent a little bit like us, but it was spent illogically. It was spent to build a team that wasn't going to obviously survive in the Premier League. They were playing ridiculous football. We've built a team that's pragmatic. We've built a team that is built to survive in the Premier League. We've got a strong, and we're almost getting to the positives here, strong defensive midfield that links together so nicely. We look like a team that's going to keep clean sheets and defend really well. And then I think the forward line, we're going to get into this, but maybe that's an area, a little bit of concern. There's a little bit of a hint there going to the next bit of the pod. But I think that we've done a really good job of building a team for the Premier League. And I just think sometimes the narrative around these newly promoted teams is shaped by things that have got nothing to do with us. The fact that Ipswich were rubbish last season, even though they spent 100-odd million, it's got nothing to do with the fact that Sunderland's been really well run, didn't lose particularly much money in the Championship, which means they had masses of PSR headroom. The fact that we sold Joe and Tommy Watson for big money meant we could spend even more in the summer, and then we spent that money in a logical fashion where every single player you look at and go, yeah, that makes sense. When Ipswich bought Jack Clarke and then didn't play Jack Clarke the way that Jack Clarke should play, that shows you where they were. And I don't want to drag too much on Ipswich. I feel like that's what I'm doing. But Ipswich were buying illogically. They were buying just because that player did well in the Championship last season. And we have bought players that it makes sense to buy Xhaka, Siddiqui and Diarra as a 3. And then you watch them play and you go, yeah, I can see why they did that. Makes total sense that they all complement each other. So I think sort of is a long-winded way of saying that I think we are showing that our recruitment and stuff already, you can see the fruits of that. And that's why the narrative is just swinging now, where people are going, do you know what? Sunderland have got a pretty good chance of staying up this season.
Don't mind me just crossing one of the downs off my list. Slightly in the background, James Connor.
You're going to have a case though, Johnny, aren't you, where clubs in top end of the Championship, or at least clubs with a bit of ambition in the Championship, the way we used to look at Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, they're going to be going, actually, we want to be like Sunderland. We want to do the way they're doing it. And that's something as well, isn't it? I think if this season really does work out for us and we stay up and we do it well, and then we go on and kick on in the next couple of years too, we're going to be talked historically as like a club that people aspire to be like. Because I genuinely don't think, as well, might be getting carried away here, but as well as some of these other clubs have done, like your Brentfords and Brightons, and in particular, them two are the ones that come to mind because of their sort of their player transfer model, the way that they've been able to turn players over, bring new ones in, keep improving. stabilising despite being historically small clubs for the top flight. You know, they've been able to do that, and that's why people talk about them and aspire to be them. But I actually think the way we did it's the more attainable way to do it, in that if you get your off the pitch set up right, and you then, you know, your recruitment is good, and you don't have to spend that much money, really. You've just got to have an identity and kind of build from it and bring in the right people off the pitch to make sure that when it comes to the pounds and pennies and the decisions on players, that you don't make many mistakes. Because I think that's probably the big, before this season anyways, this season we've went sort of mental with spending money. But I mean, to get out of the Championship, we did things that I don't think anyone's really done. And really, I can't think to my mind of any other club who's had a sort of a way of working that we've had in recent times, and it's worked in the way it has.
Yeah, so if we stay up, then I completely agree with kind of what you were getting at there, which is our way of doing things being almost solely focusing on off the pitch stuff first. And obviously, you know, I mean, even from day one when Kirill came in and then started getting the ball rolling, obviously there was a focus on the pitch because we needed to get out of League One. But the vast majority of attention and funds went on other things, you know, making sure that backroom team was right, getting Christian Speakman in, investing in the academy, investing in, I mean, as much as there was the big makeover of the stadium this summer, there was, I remember when Kirill came in, he spent whatever it was, £500,000 on a lighting system for sorting the pitch out at the stadium, a lighting. Everything like that has to come first. And if we stay up, which obviously I think, you know, we'd all say that we hope and think we might do, I think that is going to be more and more looked at as the primary concern that the teams looking for promotion in the Premier League should be focusing on. Whereas, because I think the way that Brighton and Brentford in particular, like you say, with their transfer model, obviously slightly different to each other, but broadly it's all based around, similarly with us, you know, buy low, sell high. Oh, smash my microphone. Buy low, sell high, you know, keep the money moving and make sure you're constantly snowballing upwards. So then when you go, you know, when you get your promotion, you've got assets you can sell, you've got money you can spend. But in a PSR world, the way that the Premier League's gone, I think, and again, this is with the caveat that the off-the-pitch stuff has to be bang on. And we were lucky in a sense with that because the size of club that we are, we have the stadium, we have the fan base, we have a lot of those things that come naturally. So this may be not the kind of model that I don't know, without being disparaging, but in Ipswich, again, to go back to Connor's example and slate them a bit more.
Ipswich, they've had a right tonking on this pod tonight.
Relegated last summer and then, you know, abused slandered for 10 minutes by me and Connor. But like, maybe they don't have the natural advantages we do. But in a PSR world in the Premier League, we've shown the value of spending almost nothing on your team before you go up. And I think you look at us and Leeds this summer and this season as the perfect pair of clubs to look as an example for this, because we've done it the way where, again, all that money's gone on off the pitch investment in infrastructure. And yes, okay, we've made sure we recruit good players and we have spent bits of money where it's been needed, but nothing like the, you know, dozens of millions up to 100 million that some teams, particularly with the parachute payments, come down and spend. And so Leeds, obviously, you know, won the league with 100 points last season, so they were much better than us in the Championship. But it doesn't matter how good you are in the Championship, it just matters that you get out of it. And I think we're going somewhere to proving that by, obviously, we, in a lot of people's eyes, scraped promotion last season, even though we all know from inside it was a different story. But, you know, the neutrals were looking at the 24-point gap, the mythical gap between us and Burnley and Leeds that we were going to have to overcome at the start of this season. But I think we're going the right way about proving that just doesn't matter, because the way we've come up, we have so much headroom with PSR to spend. And again, Connor mentioned like the sales of Tommy Watson and Job being massive contributors to that. If you go up the way we did and keep your powder dry, when you go up, you can go for it. And I think in the way that the finances of English football have gone over the past, I mean, pick a time period, but certainly since 1992, and it's been turbocharged the last decade, you know, the way that it's gone, you have to be so clever about the way that you operate, particularly with those, you know, the player transfer funds. It has to be it's a science now, isn't it? It's an arcane kind of art, being able to balance the books in the way everything works. So I think, it's, again, a slightly long-winded way of getting to the point, but I do think we will become, in some ways, if we get it right, and we do stay up, obviously that's a caveat, but if we get it right, we'll become an example of almost the new way of operating as a team looking for promotion in this era of the Premier League.
Yes, well, we will get to the meat of the matter after this short ad break. We'll see you after the break.
New Icy Hot. Nighttime recovery. Relieves pain at nighttime while your body recovers. Icy Hot. You're so back. Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Right, we're back, and you join us for the point of this podcast, of course, which is to chat about our biggest positives and some areas we'd like to see a little bit of improvement, or maybe areas of concern with how Sunderland's season's going. And as I said before, please don't take this the wrong way. We're not looking for negatives out and out. These might just be very innocuous things, or you might listen and you go, actually, he's got a point there. We're going to start off with you, Connor. You're first up, please, for the season. As we've kind of outlined in the opening 20 minutes or so of this podcast, there's been a lot of them. So I imagine this was quite a tough decision to pick just two.
Yeah, so you want to do both? Two?
No. Let's
just
go with your first one, and we'll chat about it.
All right, okay. Well, I think the first thing I would say is defensive solidity and organisation. I imagine that's probably top of people's list, but the fact when you come up to the Premier League, and also a lot of my concerns heading into the season, especially because it took us so long to get the centre backs over the line. And then we had like Dan Ballard getting injured, and I was like, why is Jensen Sealed? We've spent 100-odd million and Jensen Sealed line up with centre back. And
doesn't that feel like a year ago now?
I know.
Even just that.
I feel so bad for Jensen Sealed because obviously he did well. Like, it's no real criticism of him. But just psychologically, I was like, this guy didn't even play in the Championship and he's starting in the centre back in the Premier League. And then I just look at how we played against Palace at the weekend. Do you know, all the games we've played this season? I'm like, Alderete just looks like an absolute, like, just a stud. Like, is that the right word? He just looks unbelievable. And then you've got Hawley, who's a right back, who's coming in at centre back and looks incredible. Like, how is he not a centre back? I mean, I know that he could play there, but he's playing in a 2 and everyone's like, oh, he plays right centre back in a 3. He looks unbelievable. Ballard started the season, just looked like a man mountain, then obviously got injured, which was, I'm concerned, oh God, what we're going to do with centre back. But we've just got options there. The full backs look decent. They've obviously brought in Gertrude. I think I've said that right, hopefully. He's come in there.
I think I heard Nick Martin and Chris on the pod yesterday saying Gertrude. We're going to have to get a Gertie. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, Gertie. That might change to Girthy. Yeah, big Gertz. He comes in, but he looks like a player when he came on. Big, physical, strong. I love the way we've recruited, and as well that the age profiles, we've not stuck to the buy-in kids. The defense, they've clearly just went, nah, we're not messing about here. We're getting in established pros, and then obviously the goalkeeper as well goes into that. I mean, that just looks like incredible business.
Yeah. No, well, that's a good point you make about the shape up of the defence. And you think about it, Jonny, as I said before, we've actually had quite a lot of disruption at centre-half in particular. You know, you've had Ballard's injury, having to play Sealed because we had nobody else, then probably chucking in Mukiele earlier than we might have wanted to, and Alderete actually, because Alderete was here a matter of minutes. And then for the last game, like we were talking before the game, he played like in the middle of our night on the Wednesday for Paraguay. So you're thinking, but hell, he probably wouldn't have got to bed at like 5-6 in the morning our time. Then he's got to travel back, and then he's got to be in the right mental state to be ready for the game. Yet all this stuff's gone on, and we look so solid. And at the same time, it's commendable. But I'm also looking at it and going, actually, like, how good could this defence be with time, with more minutes together on the pitch? with the new lads settling in properly, like that is promising, that defence. And that you mentioned before, that mythical 24-point gap between us, Burnley and Leeds. But Burnley and Leeds got promoted on unbelievable defensive solidity. And you're kind of seeing that to a degree. Burnley are still trying to do things the same way. It's not quite working out, but it might get them results this year. It's obviously something that all the clubs have looked at, isn't it? Looking at the teams who came down, when you need a defence first and foremost to have any chance of staying up.
And it's proven to be the right call already, isn't it? Connor's obviously just waxed lyrical about the defence a bit there. And obviously watching us play, you can just see how good the defence looks. And Mukiele especially, I thought he was so calm on Saturday against Palace. That was such a tough game to go away to Selhurst Park. And obviously you mentioned about Alderete being back late from international duty and all the rest of it. But it just looked like he just wasn't phased at all. And that is...
Up against one of the best strikers in the league as well, by the way. He made him look average.
Yeah, and Mateta as well is a striker who's not just good at scoring goals. He's an all-round threat, isn't he? He's physical, he's tall, he's strong, he's quick. And Mukiele just never looked bothered. It was phenomenal to watch. And that is just emblematic of the way that we've recruited and performed defensively so far this season. And when you think about everyone always, the old adage of don't change a winning team. But I always think, like, regardless of how you're playing and what the results are looking like, the one position outfield that I never really want to see change much through a season is the centre of defence. And like you said, that's where we've had the most upheaval in these first few games. So for that to have been going on as the backdrop, and obviously Roofs, he's been brilliant, but new keeper, young lad, it's not guaranteed that he's going to hit the ground running in the way that he has. So for it all to have come together so quickly has been so much of a relief. It's a weight off the collective shoulders, isn't it? Because like you say, you look at the teams who've been going down the last few years, it's been the defence that's been the overall problem. Yeah, they've all obviously not scored that many goals either, comparatively, because they've gone down and not won many games. But like Southampton last year especially, like they were just shipping goals for fun. And so, yeah, it's brilliant to see that we've clearly, looked at that, thought the way to do it is to be solid. And it's all well and good having the right ideas, but you've got to execute. And so far, so bloody good.
Yeah. I was talking to a mag on Tuesday night in the pub, and he was like, you know what your problem's going to be? These players all need to click. It'll take them ages to click. And I went, you clearly haven't watched us then, because that's one of the things. I mean, if we'd recorded this kind of podcast before the start of the season, I probably would have sat there and went, it's a lot of upheaval. Like, it's going to be tough for them all to click quickly, but they have, and that in defence, that's the most pleasing thing for me, is the likes of Mukiele's just came in and they look like they've played 100 games for Sunderland, and the same Alderete. It's been brilliant, and that's probably one of the things I would have wrote down as well, Connor. Let's go to you then, Johnny. You're first up. If Connor's not already spoilt your list there with his.
Nah, I've got a few to pick from, don't worry. The first thing I'm going to go for is almost slightly to call myself out. So one of my big criticisms of Le Bris last season was the way that he used, or more accurately, the way he didn't use his squad and his bench, particularly early on. Now, that was remedied towards the end of the season, but, as much as Le Bris has been brilliant, we don't know that he's going to sort of continue where he left off, if that makes sense. Remember at the start of last season, it was very much you could pick the team before you saw the team sheet come out for them first 10 games or so. Now, it would help we were winning a lot of them, mind, so we didn't need to change the team. But even within games, the substitutions were late or just ineffective. Clearly it wasn't quite clicking. But I think early in this season already, he's put those worries to bed for me. And, the substitutions that have brought goals, which is a big weapon to have in your arsenal. Isidore twice has come off the bench and scored late goals. Obviously, the Brentford one slightly more important than the West Ham one, but both pleasing. And the other thing was when he brought Enzo Lefebvre on the left wing and dropped Simon Adingra for the Brentford game. That's the kind of move that I don't think the Le Bris of 12 months ago would have made. Now, obviously, he didn't have the same level of players, but that's another thing that just, really reassured me that actually he's still at a point where he's comfortable with his squad and he feels like he's got options that he can turn to and use when we need to, because you can't just pick a starting 11 and never make changes for the rest of the season. Yeah. If you could just do that, I think there'd be a hell of a lot more people thinking they could do the job of a manager. So yeah, for us to show as early as we have this season that we actually do have a well-rounded and versatile squad that Le Bris is confident in turning to when he feels like things need to change or we need to make things happen, that's so important, because there are going to be so many games this season where going into the last 20 minutes, we need to change things to give ourselves a boost or to shore things up or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, for me, the use of the squad from Le Bris so far has been a huge positive.
I think the other thing there, Connor, which Jonny never mentioned, was the fact he's a young coach. He's not set in his ways. He's not, he hasn't had like 10 jobs as a manager and thinks he knows better. He's willing to learn and adapt. And I think when you're talking about Le Bris 12 months ago as compared to now, he is a far better coach from all the experiences he's went through to this point as a result. And like, you don't necessarily get that with, I'm not going to slag these kind of managers up because they've done well for us, but like your traditional, like your Sam Allardyce. Sam Allardyce is the one that comes straight to mind, just because Sam Allardyce is, years as manager at a high level and had success. So his way probably works for him. And you're not probably going to get Sam Allardyce changing too much. I picked on Sam Allardyce there just because I was listening to his podcast earlier. Just first one that came to mind. But do you know what I mean by that? Like a younger, like a coach will admit when they're wrong and be like, well, maybe I did need to do that differently and what have you. And you can see that really, and it's something that Jonny's nailed there really. You can see that in the way that he manages games now. Like he is a different coach to the one that took the team over 12 months ago.
Yeah, and I really like how he isn't married to like, right, I'm going to play this way. Like, look at Russell Morton last season at Southampton, and this season at Rangers.
And this season, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. You look at a manager like him, though. McKenna was the same last year, insistent on doing things that cost them the game. They want to play out from the back. They want to do the things that they know to do that worked in the Championship, because the Championship's a weaker league. And they get into the Premier League and they think we're going to try and do the same thing, and it doesn't work. Whereas you look at our manager, I have full faith that he looks at every single game. And we saw it last season, say the Sheffield United home game, where he changed things. He went two up top. He looks at every game individually and goes, how on earth do we win this game today? And the way we win this game today is you know what? Maybe I'm going to have to drop a player I really like, or maybe I'm going to have to totally change the system because that benefits us in this game right now. And a lot of managers just don't do that. And I think Jonny talked as well about the utilising of the squad. And I think that also comes from the fact that last season, he probably felt like he could only trust 15 or 16 players. Now, he's literally got a squad of, 23, 24. And I imagine he's happy for every single one of them players to play games, which means he can make changes. So he's got that adaptability within the squad. He will have been a part of the recruitment. He will have signed off every single player that has signed for this club over the last 14, 15 months. Therefore, that means that he knows what each player wants. He knows why he's bought them. He knows where they fit the team. I mean, fundamentally, last summer, we barely added any players to the squad last summer. He had the team that basically finished 16th, and he had to turn that into a team that finished 4th and won promotion. That shows how incredible a manager he is. But now he's got tools at his disposal, and we're seeing already that he's approached games, just slight tweaks in games. The Le Fay decision, I think, against Brentford was the reason why we won that game. So you look at every single thing he does, and you look at how he approaches games. And I would far rather have a manager like Le Bris, who is not married to a certain way of playing, than somebody who is insistent, right, okay, we're playing Liverpool away, we're going to go there and we're going to play 4-2-3-1 and really push them and be aggressive, and then see Salah do them on the counter 4 times. Like, who wants that? So it's really good for us that we've got a manager that is willing to change depending on the game they're playing. That's vital if you want to stay in the Premier League.
He's far more from the Thomas Frank school of manager than he is the Ange Postecoglou school of manager, isn't he?
Yeah.
As you say, Connor, the way that he's so willing to just adapt and change based on whatever the game and the situation needs is such a big, big advantage for you to have in your coach. Whereas these managers who are so married to one style that they can't change, Ruben Amorim at Man United, the biggest profile example of that, the highest profile example, yeah, I'm so much happier that we've gone the direction we've gone.
Oh, then it's been 30 odd minutes of relentless positivity. Connor, let's hear your first down, your constructive criticism or area of concern.
Let's just blow it all up. That's what I think. No, I think I'm going to go with the going out of the Carabao Cup and link that with the fringe players, because I was disappointed that we went out that competition, because we would have obviously played midweek this week, but we need players like Dan Neil, and we needed Luke O'Nien to get minutes, and a lot of those fringe players who it's going to take a while for them to get into the team because of just the squad we've got. It's disappointing we went out that competition so early, because it would have given us a chance. If we played this midweek, we might have been able to say Luke O'Nien, I don't know how far away he is, but I know he's been in training. Or can we push you into this game? Can we see if we can get you minutes and see if we can get you a bit of game time to see how you're doing? And I think that's a real shame. And then also on top of that, you've then got the situation with players like Dan Neil and Dennis Serkin, where their contracts are coming up and they're not getting game time. Neil obviously not getting any game time. The Carabao Cup would have represented a real chance for us to get them in the team. The concern for me now is if, touch wood, I am touching wood, Granit Xhaka gets injured in training tomorrow and we have to stick Dan Neil in that position where he's played virtually no football this season, whereas at least if he'd played 2 or 3 Carabao Cup games, we would have had a player there that's match fit and has played regularly. So that's a negative for me. I just think I wish we maybe took that competition a little bit more seriously than what we did.
No, that's a good point. I think I can't pretend that I was gutted we went out, but when it's the way you framed it there. This week, you would have probably had Broby starting, Gertruda, you would have had Luke O'Nien come back from injury, probably would have played in that game.
Masuaku.
So, Masuaku, yeah, there's another one. Patterson, who's, he's I suppose the other side of that is, well, a lot of those players, they had the chance to progress and they didn't take it. A lot of them were the ones who got beat off Huddersfield. But the point remains is if we were in the cup, it gives opportunities to players who would probably need, even coming up next sort of international break after that. I don't know when the next round of the League Cup is, but it'll be around that time, I would have thought. Sort of late on in October, I would imagine. You're going to maybe have Romain Mundle coming back. Serkin, we don't know how far away he is, but he can't be that far off, really. So, you're there's a handful of others that if we managed to get past this round, then they would have had a chance to play in a good game. And instead, you're looking at it and you're going, well, when are they going to play? The under-21s played and got battered off that National League team on Tuesday night. And the club didn't take that as an opportunity to play some of these lads, which makes us think, that's not how they see it. Whereas last year when we were in the Championship, the 21s were used as a platform for fringe players to get games. I don't think that's the case now we've been promoted. They're obviously looking at it and saying, actually, no, now we're in the Premier League, our best young players need them opportunities, which is fair enough. But that's another opportunity taken away from fringe players. And I agree. I think that's a good point, Connor, that, we've kind of robbed ourselves of that chance by not progressing. And it's a good point, Jonny, isn't it? You see your likes of Dan Neil and you're thinking, when are you going to get a sniff? You're probably not. And it's when you kind of bring it into your mind's eye, we would have been playing this week, and that would have been a chance for those players ahead of the weekend.
Yeah, I had a similar point that I was potentially going to bring up, which was around the same kind of thing. Is we've almost got too many good players, so you struggle to see where the likes of Dan Neil, where the likes of all the players that you've just kind of been mentioning, you struggle to see where they're going to get the minutes over the season to be able to keep them happy, keep them hungry, keep them ticking over in terms of fitness. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's a nice problem to have that you've got so many players that you're desperate for more games to be able to play them in and rotate and experiment and try things. But it is true that it's just one more avenue of getting those minutes into the legs that's been closed off early. So it is a shame. I mean, I was the same as you, Gav. I wasn't really bothered when we went out. I was disappointed in the sense that, you don't want to see Sunderland lose games and go out of competitions, but I was also very philosophical about it. We need to focus on the league and all the rest of it. But I think it's a very good point, and it's something that, I mean, we've still got the FA Cup coming up, later in the season, which will be another opportunity that we'll have to maybe bring in some of these players. But, that is a good few months away as we sit right now. So it's going to be something that I don't think it makes Le Bris's job that much harder, but it is just something that's an extra little bit of an obstacle that he needs to consider, particularly, I think, in terms of the morale, because it must be obviously not an unhappy camp, but it must be a slightly tense group in a sense, because you think of Alan Brown's comments when he left on loan, and that feeling that I'm sure a lot of the players have who came up, not so much that they're feeling hard done by, but that little nagging feeling of, well, hang on a minute, I got us here, do I not deserve a chance? And look, it's a long season. There are going to be injuries, losses of form, suspensions, all the rest of it. So it's not like the lads who are on the bench currently are never going to start games and never going to play. But yeah, it would have just been nice to have that as a little extra option, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Anyways, before we go off for another break, Jonny, give us your first down.
So I'm going to say, it's a bit low-hanging fruit, but creativity from open players being in slightly short supply so far, which seems like quite a greedy thing to say when we've scored 5 goals in 2 home games. But obviously there was the penalty against Brentford, even the game against West Ham. Yes, we scored 3 goals, but the third only came about because West Ham were 2-0 down in injury time. So they had to chuck players forward for the last 10 minutes. So that there were always going to be those gaps for us to exploit. And, we've scored a few headers, which is great. And I'm glad to see us taking advantage of that as a way to score goals, even though it's not always been fashionable over the past sort of 5-10 years. But they're not, when you think of an easy goal, in inverted commas, you think of a winger goes down, cuts one back for a striker who's waiting to put one in. I think of the game against Sheffield Wednesday at the start of last season, that Mayenda's second goal, where Clark gets slid in down the left, cuts it back, Mayenda just has a tap in. They're the kind of goals that creative and incisive teams score, and we just haven't quite seen it yet. Now, I'm not panicking. I'm not I'm not shitting bricks at the thought that we're never going to score goals for the rest of the season. But it's just, I've mentioned a lot on recent pods about it's been good to see us tick so many things off as we go. We've seen a back to the wall jobby in the end of the Palace game. We've seen a couple of brilliant counter-attacking goals. We've seen this and we've seen that. This is something we just haven't quite seen yet. And I'm sure it'll come in the fullness of time because we've got such a new group of players, and even though they've gelled defensively brilliantly so far, we just haven't quite seen it going forward. There are signs of it every now and then. Adingra, for that sort of 5-10 minutes in the first half against Palace, where he was getting on the ball and running at people, was a good example of where those improvements can clearly be made. But yeah, it's just something that I think that we do need to just tweak and adjust slightly as the season goes, particularly at home, where we're obviously going to have to try and win the majority of our points. I would like to see us not having to be so efficient as to take the one good chance that we get in a game, because we're not going to get another one. You want to give yourself a bit of a safety net of, oh, it's all right if he misses this one because, there'll be another before too long. So yeah, I think I would just like to see us producing some more consistent patterns of play going forward that we can then rest a bit easier knowing that the goals will come, regardless of when and who, that they will be on the way.
I think when you look at the teams we've played, I think it was Martin made this point on the pod when we had Nick Barnes on this week. The last 3 games we've played teams who play a low block, and that's not going to happen every week. I think that's when it becomes difficult. That's why teams struggle to play through us, because we do it, right? So a low block against a low block, it's very difficult to see many open play chances created. But then you look at the West Ham game, West Ham completely dominate the ball and we win 3-0. And different types of goals, but ultimately we scored 3 goals from open play. And I'm curious to see, especially on Sunday against Villa, but then we've got Man U after that, we've got Wolves, Chelsea, Everton. These aren't teams that play with a low block. So it's going to be interesting to see, actually. I think what you've seen is you've seen Sunderland's plan B to an extent in the last 3 games, in that we've played teams who play like us. You look at the rest of the games that we've got coming up, I think we've played the majority of the teams who play with a low block. So that's going to be an interesting thing, is if when we play teams who are a little bit more open and expansive, that power, pace, physicality that we've recruited to be able to play in the Premier League, will that come to the fore? Will we see Sunderland creating more of them chances which you're talking about? Anyways, we're going to head to another break and then we'll be back with the last two picks.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Netflix has a new, monstrous story to tell. In 1950s Wisconsin, Ed Gein lived quietly on a decaying farm, hiding a house of horrors so gruesome it would redefine the American nightmare. Driven by isolation, psychosis, and an all-consuming obsession with his mother, he committed crimes that would haunt Hollywood for decades. The third and most harrowing installment of Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan's anthology series. Watch Monster, the Ed Gein story, October 3rd, only on Netflix.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
And we are back. Next up, Connor, let's go with another one of your ups.
So I'm gonna to look back at 5 years ago and the state of the club generally, and then just look at where it is today. And I think the best way that fans can visualize the growth is remember what the concourses look like. The grey, drab, breeze blocks, the toilets were minging and all that sort of stuff. And now you go into the behind the scenes and everything looks amazing. When I used to work at the academy, I liked. That's the first shout out that I used to work for the club. There we are. Whoever had that, they can put a pound in the jar. The academy light was a shambles. It hadn't had money spent on it for years and years and years. And everything at the club was ran in that way. There was no pride in what the football club was. And I think you kind of saw that on the pitch. The fact that you would have conversations with people who worked at the club and they didn't have, oh, wow, I work for Sunderland. It was more, what a shambles this is. You had Netflix going around filming, for their amusement, essentially, to show how much of a shambles the club was. And everything that was negative about the club was just projected all over the place. And that's not me saying the Netflix documentary wasn't good. It's clearly benefited us long term. We talk about players signing for the club because they've watched it. But I think it just shows how far the club has come, really, since its ownership has come in, because the previous ownership to them were running things on a shoestring to get it by and get it through a period. We're hoping to get promoted out of luck more so than an actual plan. The people that have come in here have got a plan, and everything you see on the pitch now, it's the same to what you see off the pitch. They've planned everything. They've hired the right people. David Bruce coming in. You see Speakman's obviously come in and headed up the football side of things, and that's obviously been a massive positive. And there are just so many things now. You look at it and go, bloody hell, in 4 years, is that what it was, 2021 did they buy it? 2020, 2021? In 4 years, they've turned one of the worst run football clubs, probably for its size, probably the worst run football club in the world. And they've now turned it into one that we're talking about being a shining example, and that if a team was to be, say Wolves got relegated to the Championship and we're going to have to reset, they will probably look at the way that we've done things and go, right, we're going to go that way. We're going to do the youth recruitment, It's only 4 years ago that we were an absolute shit show. And that's a positive for me. I get a feeling of when I see the stadium full on a Saturday and we're playing the Premier League, we've got the tifos, there's fire coming out of the ground and all that sort of stuff. Everyone's buzzing to be there. You go to the sheepfolds. Everyone's wearing the kits now because they're not a shambles, not having horrendous Adidas tops with a massive thingy across the front of the shirt and all that sort of stuff. And now, look at where we are. It's mind-boggling, really, in 4 years that this has happened.
Oh, it's one of the biggest positives, isn't it, Jonny? Just being proud of your club again. I think that's ultimately what Connor's saying there. It's not just the it's not it's not the pounds and pennies, it's not the money spent necessarily. But there is a lot in just having a lot of like self-worth and like not being embarrassed yourselves, like Connor said there when he worked at the club in the past, and people were genuinely like just so cynical and apathetic about the state of the club that they just weren't proud of the place. It's right now, like now you can't get a ticket for a game. It's like the Wolves game went on sale the other day. It was on sale 5 minutes and it was sold out. It's like people all of a sudden it's like it's become you must not lose ticket to watch, because you give your season ticket up, you're not getting it back, and it's like, right, well, I've got to keep me ticket, or if you want to get a match day ticket, you've got to be on it to just get a ticket, or you've got to know someone who might not be going to the game that day, and like that's such a good thing for the club long term that we're in that position. It's healthy. You talk about I remember when it wasn't that long ago, they were talking about stadium expansion plans and all that, and people saying we'd have to actually sell the place out to make that worthwhile. Well, all of a sudden you're looking and you're going, if we have a couple of good seasons, there's going to be a demand to do that sort of thing. And then you're like, then that opens up so many opportunities. It's just this, we could probably just do a full podcast waxing lyrical about all that stuff. But it is true. It's about pride, isn't it? It's about, we are very, very proud of our football club now. And it has been a long time since I've been able to say that, certainly.
It's the difference between a good football team and a well-run, good football club. It's everything else that goes, hand in hand with what's on the pitch, obviously, but also in a lot of ways totally separate. And things like sheepfolds being ran before every game and the shirts you see everywhere, like Connor said, those are expressions then of that feeling of pride and connection that comes from the fans seeing that the ownership and the staff and the people who work at the club are all fully bought in and on board and genuinely care. That makes it so much easier to support the club. And, there are better football sides than us who don't have that same connection and that same atmosphere in the games. Like, obviously, the last time we were in the Premier League, the atmosphere during home games was worse because we were a worse team and we were on a downward spiral for a lot of that time. But, even, I don't know, Leeds, as an example, Leeds are a club and a fan base who are well known for, Leeds would have took more, is the kind of the standard riposte on social media and the waiting list to get in Elland Road and all the rest of it. I dare say the Stadium of Light's been a better place to be than Elland Road the first few home games. Results aside, even before we'd kicked the ball against West Ham, that was such a special atmosphere and feeling to experience firsthand. That only comes when every single part of the club is in total synergy and working together and everybody's pulling in the right direction. And, even down to simple things like the choice of kit supplier. We've all gone on loads over the past year or so about how great the Hummel deal's been and we all love the kits and stuff. But it's such an easy win for the club in a lot of ways, but you only get to take advantage of that if you've got people involved like a David Bruce who actually care and know that, yeah, Sunderland fans love Hummel kits because it's associated with some iconic designs and teams and players and moments in our history, whereas some nameless, faceless chief exec somewhere at a Man United or even like a Chelsea or whoever, they don't care. They don't know. They don't know. Oh well, Chelsea fans love this from the 80s because none of them could even probably tell you starting 11s of the best teams in the past 15 years. Never mind going back 30, 40 years. So yeah, it's a real. Again, I keep saying it's a real advantage for us to have about loads of stuff, but it's huge to have people in charge in positions that matter at the club that have that level of buy-in to the history, the fan base, the area, because it all just, again, it snowballs together and it grows and it gets bigger and bigger. And that's why we pick up so much speed so quickly, I think, because everything off the pitch being right means that as soon as you get it right on the pitch, bang, you're away.
Yeah. Oh, then, Jonny, your last up?
I'm going to have to give you credit for this one, actually, Gav, because you mentioned this in the reaction pod after Palace, talking about the set pieces. And obviously, particularly, there was the example of, that free kick that Xhaka took to Siddiqui, who turned another touch and got the shot away, which, shame it was slightly high and wide. But I think and to be fair, this stretches a little bit into last season, but I think the way that that Le Bris has got us both attacking and defending set pieces, I think is a real change to, again, like the majority of my Sunderland support in life. We've never been a team who employs set piece routines particularly often and tries anything different to try and score goals. And again, we did this certainly at times last season, but we're at we've stepped up to the Premier League. It's a new level. You're going to be tested in new ways. And defensively as well, I think we just look so much more organised. Cast your mind back a few years. There was that run that we went on, was something like 12 months we didn't score a single goal from a corner. Might have even been longer than that in the Championship. It started under Tony Mowbray, and I think it stretched until maybe even after he'd left. So we've never taken advantage of it, really. And again, it's something that's like a little bit of a quick win. It's not too difficult to employ a decent set-piece coach, particularly once you get to the level we're at now in the Premier League. And again, look, the one that Siddiqui had the chance against Palace, it never went in, but it's yet another sign, I think, that, again, like the coaching staff, Le Bris and the powers that be at the club, they're thinking of everything. They're not leaving any stone unturned in the pursuit of improvement. And it's a little thing, really, in the grand scheme of a game of football. How many corners and free kicks collectively do you have in a game? Maybe 5 or 6, few more, few less, depending on exactly how the game pans out. So we're not talking about, the difference between having Erling Haaland up front and not, in terms of goals and points. But again, it's just another example of where the mindset's just right behind the scenes. It's just sensible, pragmatic football and thinking. And it's almost depressing in a way that I'm bringing this up as one of me two positives, because it shows how bad things were before. But I think it's something that is symbolic, again, of Le Bris in particular, in his mindset. He is such a deep thinker. You can tell about football and about specifically us at the moment, because obviously we're his club, and how to improve us. And seeing things like this, it's just, again, yet more evidence that that's happening in the background. We can rest easy in a sense, knowing that there's nothing the club aren't going to look into or try if it gives us, even 0.5% chance more of staying up. So yeah, hopefully they'll bear some more fruit in terms of actually providing goals over the coming weeks and months. But yeah, I'm going to say our slightly inventive set pieces.
Well, I think it's those, you kind of rounded off on the point I was going to make, but the marginal gains, the 1% here and there that matter. It's almost looking at the full game and going, right, what happens across the span of a game? You get so many corners. Well, let's make the most of them. What can we do to be different, to be clinical, to be organised, to be ready, to be prepared? Things like throw-ins, like even trying to be different with throw-ins, and we've got a player in Mukiele who can launch the ball into the box. So why not use that to our advantage? And I think one of the things I saw quite a bit from, and this is slightly different, but one of the things I saw quite a bit from Palace fans after the game at the weekend was them praising our organisation, just how organised. Like, that's one of the things that stands off the map every time. When you watch a Le Bris team, everybody knows their job. They're so well drilled, and it's them little thing. It's the fact he cares about them little things, and that he's got coaches around him who care about them little things, and then players who buy into it, that make it something special, actually. And those will add up across the season, because you look, we've scored goals from set pieces, we've scored goals from situations where we've put players forward up the pitch. You mentioned before about the subs and things like that. These are all things that a lot of managers probably just take for granted, and they don't put any real level of care or focus on. So it's certainly worth highlighting. Definitely, it's been a real plus of this season. Right, that's enough of positives anyways. Let's come to you, Connor, for your second down of the night.
I would say, and it's kind of, it's really a positive, but I'm spinning it into a negative. The negative is are the vultures going to circle around the infrastructure of the club? And what I mean by that is are people going to look at Christian Speakman and go, he's pretty good at what he's doing, isn't he? Are people going to look at Stuart Harvey and go, bloody hell, he knows how to find a player, he knows how to organise a scouting team? Are people going to look at Gasolfi when we finish fourth this season to get in the Champions League and go, bloody hell, in a season he's built a Champions League win into you. Well, Champions League qualified to you. So my concern is, an actual concern, I mean, that was just in jest, is that are the club in a strong enough position where they can fend off, when, like, say, I think Dan Ashworth went to Newcastle a few years ago, didn't he, from Brighton, and they were building something. Are the club going to be able to hold off the vultures that will circle over the top? And that is, it's not really a negative, it's more a concern, but we were saying causes for concern more so than negatives. But to me, that's a bit of a concern. I just hope that the project, and it seems to be that way. I mean, if you ask my good pal Fabrizio Romano, he loves talking about the exciting project at Sunderland, doesn't he? So maybe the project is just so exciting that these people would turn down Real Madrid. But I would just be a little bit, concerned that maybe in 12 months or 2 years' time, what sort of backup plan do the club have a backup plan? They seem to for everything else, but do they have a backup plan for, what happens if Christian Speakman does actually get offered an opportunity he can't turn down? What happens if these other people at the club, what happens if the manager gets, offered a chance to go somewhere and he can't turn it down? So that for me is just a concern. I think it's the Sunderland nagging in my brain that everything's just going a little bit too well, that something will have to go wrong, and maybe it's somebody coming in and essentially like buying Darren Bent from us, but instead it's going to be buying one of our directors who's doing a really good job.
Well, you've just got to hope, haven't you, that these are just cogs in the wheel, right? And if one of them needs to be taken out, we're in a good position to put something in its place. It's about building a strong ethos, isn't it? And a way of doing things that ultimately you don't really have to sell the club to people. You just, people want to work for Sunderland, and I think we're in that position at the minute. But you're right, it is a concern, because like Regis Le Bris is such an impressive coach that people are going to be, he will be on the lists of many clubs across Europe. You've just got to hope that with him, with Speakman, with Gisolfi, with Stuart Harvey, these people who are so important to us, that they're their working environment is just so good that they, even a real, like a Man United came along, would they look at that and go, why would I want to work for them? Like, I wouldn't get this level of freedom. I wouldn't get this level of control. I wouldn't be trusted by my owner. I wouldn't have this team of people around us. It would be built for me. I wouldn't have that choice. Like, you almost think like, we've given so much responsibility to these people and let them run with it and said, we trust you to do your job, that those opportunities wouldn't necessarily occur. Yeah, you're going to get bigger clubs from backgrounds of winning trophies and stuff who will be interesting, it will be tempting. But will the job be what it says on the tin? You mentioned Dan Ashworth there. He lasted 2 minutes at the Mags, and he lasted 2 minutes at Man United. There might be attractive jobs, but maybe we are just in a really fortunate. Time will tell. Look, but maybe we are in a fortunate position where these people have been given the opportunities because they're trusted, and that means more. We'll find out. I'm sure it'll happen. It's going to happen. We're going to get interest in some of our people. And you just got to hope that the club can kind of not necessarily fend it off, but they're prepared for all these things. Same way we've been prepared with players leaving. Players leave and you find somebody else to plug the gap. Hopefully somebody better. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Jonny, your final point, mate. Your last area of concern, stroke down.
Yeah, hopefully this shows you how good things are at the minute. That I've really scrabbled to try and find another negative. What I've gone with is Ballard picking up another injury this early in the season. Now, he was phenomenal at the end of last season in the playoffs. Like, I want to give him more credit now, even this long after, because I still cannot believe he came in off the back of so little football during last season. Started in the playoffs sort of out of nowhere, and then was just an absolute colossus. Was so good. Obviously, the goal against Coventry, but just to handle the occasion as well as he did was brilliant. And then I think we were all looking forward to this season. Hopefully, this Ballard shirt at the start of the season. I think, a lot of us have said at various points since he joined the club that we see a Premier League player in Dan Ballard at some point. And he started like a house on fire again this season, didn't he? So he's sort of already on his way to proving that. And then he gets the injury, and then he's out for another couple of games. And yeah, it's not a terrible injury. And I think he's back certainly should be like in contention for the squad against Villa. But yeah, it's just that's a little thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, we weren't even 4 games in and he's already down again. I'd like to see him get a run of games together. He's not on the level of a Niall Huggins or a Jensen Sealed, who obviously had that horrible cruciate ligament injury, and when you miss that much football, you're a big concern. Ballard's obviously not quite been that. It's been more frequent, shorter injuries. But yeah, for me, it's just the fact that he's happened that early that worries me, because it's not like he's got to run a 10, 15 games under his belt and then in an intense week or in the build up to Christmas he's gone, because you can understand that for any player. But yeah, it's partly saddened us so much because I was loving watching him. Like Ballard, when he's on it, is everything I want to see in a centre back. He just plays the game the way that I wish I could have played the game. You know, when I was playing Sunderland League and the Russell Foster Youth League 3rd Division and stuff on potato fields out the back of places in like Washington and that. But yeah, so it's not a huge problem. It's not a massive worry, but it is just that little bit in the back of your mind that just starts to go, oof, is he ever going to get a full injury-free season? Time will tell.
Yeah, he's a very different type of defender to the people we've recruited. And I actually think he's got one skill in his arsenal that I don't think any of... I mean, Gertruda might have this. I've not seen enough of him or any of them, in fact, really, apart from that cameo. But his ability to win the ball in the air and be accurate at it is unique. We don't have anybody else who does that. There's not many players in the game like that.
He almost gets like an extra foot of reach with his head when he's like leaning round somebody to win the ball, doesn't he?
Yeah, the only person I can really compare him to that, maybe Harry Maguire's quite good at that, where he's, you'll find Man U or England sending him up at the end of games to just win headers. Ballard's got that kind of skill. So, in that, we've already seen how important that is, because he scored that goal and he was unbelievable as a defender against West Ham. But then for that 5 minutes he was on the pitch in the Burnley game, he done that. The ball got whipped over from a set piece. He leaps above everyone else and puts it on a plate in my end, and you go, that's such a big thing. If you've got a player in your team who's that threatening on set pieces, ain't nobody stopping him when he's going. And yeah, I hadn't actually thought of that one when it came to working out sort of negatives and stuff, but you bang on. Like, I was pretty gutted he got that injury, because to me that was like, oh, it's just not going to happen for the lad. Like, because what you've seen how ruthless the club have been. They've went out and they've just replaced people who don't even need to be replaced necessarily, just because we think actually we can sign a better player than him. And I'm not saying that the players we signed are better than Ballard, but they might be more durable. And by the time he gets himself fit, he's going to find the chances limited. If him and 09 are fit to be involved at the weekend, which we were told Ballard would be fit after the international break, weren't we? So he can't be far off. Who's going to be at the bench? Because all of a sudden we've got so many players, and it's like somebody's going to have to miss out. The manager's not going to put 6 defenders on the bench. You know what I mean? He's going to have to drop somebody. So, I mean, it's a positive and negative. It's positive in the sense that you've got so many good players, and that wasn't that long ago we worried about who could play centre half against West Ham and Burnley, and all of a sudden now we're talking about like all these options. But yeah, it is an area of concern that such a good player keeps breaking down, and I think people listening will probably appreciate we've found some. We haven't been too negative. Those have been some decent picks. There are other things. I mean, I sent a bunch to use, and I'll not go over it. We've went on long enough today. But there are a bunch of others. So if anybody wants to get in touch and let us know what you think, your ups and downs, make sure you drop a comment on whatever social media platform you prefer. We do post the pods on all of them. There's also the comment section on Spotify. If you're logged into Spotify, you can actually leave us a comment on a pod. So make sure you do that. The comment section on the article on the website. We also post a thread on Ready to Go as well with every podcast. So if you're a Ready to Go member, you can leave your thoughts on there. I'm interested to see what people say. Like I say, we've already actually put the posts on all the different platforms and stuff. So if people want to contribute, they can. But thank you very much, gents. That was good. I've got a feeling we're going to do a couple more of these, I think, through the season. I might try and do one where, if we have a couple of results that are a bit iffy, we might do this again and see if it's as easy to give so many positives and as difficult to give so many negatives. But for the listeners, on the website after every single game, regardless of whether we win, lose or draw, we do a 2 up, 2 down piece. So you can also check those out after games. Just need to say thank you very much, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure. Connor, once again, mate.
The pleasure. Always good to be back on the airwaves of the podcast Rugby Report studio.
Yes. And thank you very much, Jonny. Cheers, pal. And sorry for let people peek behind the curtain here. I told you were on an hour earlier than we actually were. So you're rushing around trying to eat your tea, and there was no need for it. So, yes, thank you very much.
On a Thursday morning.
Oh, yeah, we're dating it.
Second peek behind the curtain. The peek behind the curtain.
Oh, no, Jonny, you moved in with Martin, didn't you, in Australia? That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is, actually. Yeah, good night, mate. Yeah, I've got the second half of last night's bake-off to go and watch with our lass now. So, fun never stops.
Yeah, now I'm hoping to watch the last 5 minutes of Liverpool if there's enough time. There you go. There, that's just dated the pod completely. Everyone knows exactly when we're recording. Anyways, cheers, chaps. Thank you very much. Thank you, listeners. As I said before, we really appreciate all your support. We've got 200 odd episodes of this, and we wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it. So thank you very much for listening. Get subscribed if this is the first time you've listened to us. There's loads to catch up on this week. We've had some great guests on this week. We've had Nick Barnes from BBC Radio Newcastle. We've had Look North legend Jeff Brown on the pod this week. That was a treat. There's been the On This Week pod, which I think I was on this one. Remember rightly? Yeah, I was Joe Anderson. I was called in as a late sub for that one, and I think I quit myself quite well. I did all right. But that was on Monday, which is our look back at the history of Sunderland. It's on every single Monday, although it might move this week with the game being a Sunday this week. So we might be having it on this week on Tuesday. We'll see. But there's loads to catch up on, loads of podcasts. Get subscribed. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.